Welcome to Coffee with Bridget, and today's coffee is Coney Island Caramel, and it is super yummy. I'm really enjoying it, and I have it in my Good Luck Charm mug, because I need good luck today. So I wanted to talk about my books again, because I'm going to be posting this on TikTok. I didn't post the other one on TikTok. I'm getting back into posting on TikTok. So my books that I have out that I am currently promoting, that I'm excited about, that I want everybody to read it starts off with Merosis. Now Merosis is book 1, and Merosis is so it's about a girl who wakes up or goes to sleep beneath a pine tree on her family camping trip, and she's transported to a new world. So I'm going to read the first chapter. Arrival. Brittany Rabner wound through her little campsite. Her adoptive parents liked taking her on hikes and camping. In some ways, she felt their constant adventures were overcompensation for their lack of children. She ducked her head as she passed beneath a particularly low-hanging pine tree. "Come back soon," her mother said as she grilled hot dogs and hamburgers for dinner. "Don't wander too far." They were in the Angeles National Forest, a modest and unremarkable stretch of land. The campsite was simple, with a family-sized tent. Brittany had just helped her parents set up camp and was now searching for a quiet place to read. Her mother often said she was hopelessly addicted to books, but it was a habit she happily enabled. Every store trip ended with a new one. Today she had a romance novel, and she was deeply hooked on the characters. Finding a suitable tree, she laid out a woven mat and settled in. The golden sunlight filtered through the canopy above, dust motes dancing in the beams. It was a warm summer day, and the shade provided a welcome reprieve. Brittany paused as 2 squirrels fought over a stolen peanut in the treetops. Their chattering battle faded into the forest's soothing soundtrack. Her eyes grew heavy. The combination of warmth, shade, and the distant scent of grilling food lulled her. Maybe if she just closed her eyes for a little bit. She didn't know what woke her. A sound? A shift in the air? She sat up groggily, disoriented. She had fallen asleep under a pine tree, but now she was nestled among the roots of a massive oak. The forest seemed different, wilder, untouched. A strange buzzing echoed in the distance, accompanied by the snap of twigs and rustling leaves. The buzz came in a rhythmic pattern, like an unnatural hum repeating over and over again. Not in nature, machinery. Then they appeared. 3 hovering machines shot out from the underbrush. They looked like motorcycles, but they levitated a few feet above the ground. Brittany moved closer, leaning against a tree to get a better look. All signs of her family's camp were gone. She rubbed moss off her hand, still trying to make sense of what she was seeing. 2 pale men stood near one of the machines, arguing. Their white blonde hair and long angular features looked out of the place in the forest. She noticed 2 more camouflaged silent hovercrafts nearby. Brittany turned back toward the tree where she had woken. She had to get back. Her mom must be worried. A twig snapped behind her. She turned, too late. A gloved hand grabbed her sleeve. "Let me go, help!" Her cry was cut off as the gloved hand clamped around her throat. "Say one more word and I'll cut you to pieces," a voice hissed in her ear. Leather and pine mingled with the man's breath. He dragged her deeper into the trees, then whistled. 2 more figures emerged, a tall man with scars crisscrossing his cheeks and empty gray eyes, and a striking red-haired woman dressed in black. "The girl should be nearby, Sefia," the scarred man said. "There she is," Sefia purred. "Good work, Cruz." "The boss wants her back fast," the man added. Brittany thrashed in Cruz's grip as Sefia approached with a bandana. Gag, kidnapped. She struggled harder. Suddenly, Cruz vanished. He didn't scream. He didn't resist. One moment he held her, the next he was gone. His body fell with a sickening crunch. Brittany staggered back, horrified. She recognized the gloves. "Guardian!" the scarred man shouted, but before he could act, he was yanked into the air, vanishing into the canopy as well. Sefia bolted for her hovercraft, donned his sleek helmet, and vanished into the trees. Brittany looked up. Drip. The scarred man hung in the branches, his throat torn open. Blood dripped onto her forehead. She screamed. Running blindly through the forest, she crashed through fruits and brush, heading for a sliver of open sky. Freedom. But just as she broke into a clearing, an invisible force pulled her back. She twisted, kicked, struck air. Someone dodged. She turned to run, slammed into a broad chest, spun, caught again. 2 pale men blocked her path. Then a whisper at her ear. "Sleep." The word echoed inside her. Her body went limp. Darkness claimed her. So that is chapter 1 of Merosis. So that is book 1. I hope you enjoyed that excerpt. The next book in this series is the prequel. I recommend starting with Merosis and then going to the Lady of the White Shield. So I will read a snippet from the Lady of the White Shield as well. Dust and relics. Nezra was in his head again. He was always this way when he was sweeping the hallways in the east corridor. There was something about this dark corridor that always made him uneasy. Maybe it was the ancient relics sitting on their pedestals, or rotting old cargo boxes. Light filtered through tall arched windows, painting silver lattices on the stone. Dust shimmered in the sunbeams like old spirits. He was thinking about how it wasn't fair. Here he was, just turned 18, and he was relegated to this lonely chore. Everyone else was preparing for the upcoming Festival of the Stars. They were preparing tables filled with wonderful food and drink. Some were setting up game booths and tables with prizes. Others were creating elaborate masks for the celebration. Here he was, though, doing his ordinary chores. He didn't even know if he'd be allowed to visit the festival. Things had always been this way, though. He had lived in the Temple of Fates for as long as he could remember. His birth was as mysterious as the temple itself. They said he was left on the northern steps of a fancy tavern in the town of Wynette during a thunderstorm, wrapped in red silk with a sigil on it that he could not read. He kept the red silk wrapping safely in a small box in his room, in hopes of one day decoding its message. The priestess of the Order of Fates that had been called had said that his was a sign, and brought him to the temple where he was fed discipline and ritual like morning bread. His stomach rumbled. Speaking of breakfast, he'd missed his meal this morning. He had accidentally slept in and had scrambled to his chores. Priest Frederick, the overseer of the Temple of Fates, was very dedicated to timeliness. The bespectacled, chubby priest had laughed as Nezra gathered his supplies. "Boy," he'd said, "just because you've turned 18 doesn't mean you have an excuse to be late." Nezra had promptly hurried to his chores. Taking an apple out of his brown robes, he bit into it with a great chomp. He brushed his brown hair out of his golden brown eyes as he ate. He needed another haircut and a shave, he thought, as he rubbed his chin. Most days within the Fates Temple was unremarkable for all of its mystery. No one really knew what the Fates Temple was for or how it had come to be there. The rumor was that the Fates themselves called it up out of the ground with magic. While Nezra had a hard time believing that the mystery of the temple had never bothered him, to him it was just home. No matter what, there was an entire section of the temple that was off limits. He'd never been interested in exploring all of its corridors. In his hours off duty, which were few and far between, he watched the Red Priests train. The Red Priests were the warriors of the Silver Spire. They had a small detachment of the Fates Temple. They were the ones that kept people from entering the section that was unsafe. They were big, strong men who carried bastard swords and could heal as much as maim. There were training dummies set about the courtyard behind the temple, and the men trained there. Every day, Nezra watched the Red Priests training. Then, when no one was watching, he practiced the moves. He used his mop instead of a sword, but he could go through the moves. He had confessed his desire to be a Red Priest to Priest Frederick, but the man had just laughed. Nezra wasn't scrawny, but he wasn't muscled like the Red Priests. He had asked how he was meant to gain the muscle without training, and Priest Frederick had just laughed some more and handed him a mop and bucket. Instead, he wanted to see the world. He wanted to see all of Merosis. He wanted to travel to Shar and see the beautiful bloody forest. He wanted to walk along the shores of Shui, to climb the peaks of Erin, and witness the fire destruction of Volnia's volcanoes. There was just so much to see and do in this vast world. But here he was doing chores. Even as he tucked the core of his apple into his robes, however, he realized there was something else that was inspiring his wanderlust. There was a thrum in his chest, a humming, like a string pulled tight between his ribs. He swept slowly, now drawn down the hall toward the reliquary vault, a room few entered and fewer still remembered. Something was drawing him down there, a feeling that he couldn't quite put his finger on. The door cracked open with his touch, reluctant, and the air within was cool and dry. Fresh dust flew up to assail his nose, and he sneezed. His eyes fell upon the shelves of dusty scrolls, half-cracked ceremonial spears, crumbling statues, and there, hung high upon the wall as though forgotten, a shield. The shield didn't look particularly fancy. In fact, it was quite plain-looking, although it looked as though it could use a good polish. He would tell Priest Frederick about it and offer to polish it. The chubby priest would probably laugh and allow him to do it. Nezra stepped closer, transfixed. He shouldn't without permission. He knew that. And something in him, an ache he could not name, called his hand upward. The moment his fingers touched it, the world pulled inward. His vision blurred, his breath caught, the shield flickered with light, and then a voice, soft, luminous, Nezra. And I'll stop there because this video is coming to an end almost kind of soon. So the next book in the series is The Bloodstone. And then the final book in the series is Echoes of Niklos. So those are my books, and if you are curious about them or if you want to read them, I will send a PDF to people who want to read them and do a review on Goodreads. So go ahead and message me if you're interested. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed those little snippets of Merosis and the Lady of the White Shield. They're my book babies. These are the 4 books that I'm really excited people read because it's been a big part of my life. I wrote the first draft for Merosis in high school. I wrote the second draft in my 20s, and here I am releasing them in my 40s. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you reach out to me to read them. Take care, and bye for now.